If you could snap your fingers and replace D&D as the industry's big boy, what would you replace it with?
Well, I mean, obviously, selfishly, I would say one of my games, right? Because I could do with several $100 million. That would be quite nice to have. I think that would be very useful. I wouldn't have to be grubbing for house repair money otherwise. However, I also wouldn't like the stress and the baggage that would come with being the market leader. Less selfishly, then, what game do I think would be the best replacement for Dungeons and Dragons? I guess it's kind of the question, because that's how you have to think about it. I think Dungeons and Dragons was most people, not mine, but most people's introduction to the hobby. And so what did it have going for it back in those days? That would be basic D&D. 5th edition, I don't think, is necessarily the ideal introductory product. You don't really have an equivalent of basic anymore. And that's probably a mistake. I mean, the kind of people that were inducted into the hobby this time around were very similar to the people who were inducted back in the very early days, university students and older. So people in their late teens through their 20s. But we don't really have anything that's angled at younger kids. Maybe 12 and up. I mean, I started playing at 8, thereabouts. But I think 12 and up is probably the sweet spot to aim for. So you need something that's accessible to them. And part of the reason D&D was so successful is that it had the kind of generic fantasy tropes that everyone could get a handle on, because they knew The Hobbit, they knew The Lord of the Rings, they knew all the kind of things that had been spun off from that. In the 80s, you had a whole bunch of fantasy movies that people could kind of riff on and understand the game through the terms of those movies. So I think if I were going to replace D&D with a game, it would have to be something that is relatively easy to grasp, but adaptable, has some depth to it if you push into it a bit more. And it would have to be a genre that is recognizable and accessible to everyone. That would be super important as well. So I would probably resurrect D6 Star Wars. Now, for people within a certain age band, I think that would be run second to D&D as the introductory RPG that brought a hell of a lot of people into the hobby, and the quality of the material was so good that Lucasfilm used it as references. So, that's got a lot going for it, and it was easily graspable and pick upable. You only needed 6-sided dice, and so long as you could roll and add, you were fine. But there was finesse to the system. There was depth to it. You could pull off stunts and powers and stuff relatively easily without overcomplicating the system. And to play a character, all you had to do was pick up a template, adjust it a bit, and then you were good to go. Oh, I want to play the farm boy just like Luke in episode 4, right? And you could. Or I want to play a smuggler like Han Solo, and you could pick that up and play it. Oh, I'm a reformed stormtrooper. I can take the template for a stormtrooper and I can tweak that, and away we go. That's it. Everyone knows Star Wars. Everyone can get hold of 6-sided dice, and everyone can roll dice and add the numbers together, right? So that's why it was such a wonderful introductory system. Of course, Star Wars is kind of fucked now, and so is Marvel, which would be my kind of third choice superheroes as a genre to bring people into the hobby. I don't know. There are underserved genres that are extremely popular, like crime, and so on. There's a possibility that you could create an RPG where people CSI that shit. That might appeal to a lot of people. But I think probably the best replacement for D&D would have been D6 Star Wars. But now that Star Wars is dead, I don't know what would be the best one. D&D has become kind of self-perpetuating, I think, and that's both a blessing and a curse for the brand, I think. But it has lost its identity. It has lost the things that made it interesting and made people want to pick it up to a large degree, I think, in chasing a universal audience or a particular kind of presumed to be universal audience. I think it's lost its pizzazz. So maybe next edition D&D will find itself again. Maybe other media will find itself again. We'll see. But there's no contenders I see in the landscape at the moment for D&D's crown. For various reasons, but that's a whole other video.